Wonder Woman 1984 might be coming out on Christmas Day, but we have an early present for you with a sneak peek behind the scenes. Despite production wrapping up in 2018, we've been left waiting for the second Wonder Woman standalone movie for some time. But thankfully, that wait is almost over, with Wonder Woman 1984 set to be released on Christmas Day in the US and Canada. The movie will jump forward to the 80s and pit Diana against two new foes, the Cheetah and Max Lord. Other plot details have been thin on the ground, but we do know that alongside Gal Gadot, Chris Pine will be reprising his role from the original movie, although at this time it's unclear how. But we do have some intriguing information when it comes down to some behind-the-scenes information. This includes jaw-dropping stunts and visual effects, crazy costume design, and touching cast stories. Let's get our parachute pants and shoulder pads on and comb our mullets, because we are going back to the 80s. In terms of visuals, Wonder Woman 1984 will be an absolute joy to behold. The movie's being shot on film and IMAX, something which director Patty Jenkins thinks is very important. There's also going to be bigger and better action sequences than the first movie, and they'll throw us straight into the action. Although it was no easy feat recording these action sequences, as within a single day of filming, the production would use 14 cranes and multiple IMAX cameras. One of the action sequences we'll see in the movie includes the involvement of the Invisible Jet. Fan footage taken behind the scenes shows Gal Gadot zipping through the streets of New York while hanging from cables in a great deal of anguish, suggesting the use of the Invisible Jet. But one of the greatest action sequences might come in the opening. The movie's opening sequence is said to be a visceral flashback to Diana's childhood on Themyscira. Associate producer Anna Abrupta said in an interview that, quote, "It's just this amazing sort of opening sequence of these Amazons performing these events that are like Cirque du Soleil meets American Ninja Warrior meets extreme sports, but yet like nothing you've ever seen before," end quote. And wow, that's quite the combination. In fact, many of the professional athletes who portrayed the Amazons in the original movie will return to take on the obstacle course we see at the beginning of the movie. The set for the obstacle course was reportedly suspended high above the ground while the competitors wore cables, but of course, as this is a Wonder Woman movie, the main focus will be on our titular hero, and Jenkins has said she'll have a few more weapons in her arsenal, and she'll have new ways to use the lasso and tiara. This means a refined Wonder Woman will make for even better action sequences, and I am here for it. As we said, this movie has shot ahead to the 80s, but you might be wondering why specifically the year 1984 was chosen. Well, Patty Jenkins has said that not only is it a nod to the classic novel by George Orwell and the album by Van Halen, but she also identifies the year as the pinnacle of the 80s. To replicate the 80s, a lot of the onus fell on the costume design, including big hair, shoulder pads, parachute pants, and fanny packs. So we are going to see some peak 80s fashion. Not gonna lie, I'm hoping to see plenty of mullets or flocks of seagulls hairstyles myself. But unsurprisingly, the greatest amount of detail went towards the armor. In particular, Diana's winged golden armor. In an interview with Total Film, costume designer Lindy Hemming had to create a number of inventions to make it work. Hemming had to create an undersuit, which was made of tiny panels of urethane, which was then attached to a catsuit over which gold-painted 3D printed polyurethane items were placed. But as you gathered, this is quite a lot to wear, and all in all, was rather uncomfortable. Superhero costumes are infamous for being uncomfortable, and actors such as Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, and Chris Hemsworth have all had issues wearing theirs. Thankfully for Gadot, Hemming said she could wear part of the armor so she could have her legs free while she was being filmed from the waist up, and the wings would be taken away when they were not needed, which was often. Speaking of those wings, they turned out to be pretty tricky too, as Jenkins wanted them to be usable as a shield. To make this a possibility, the costume department had to create a series of wings with some of them having a cage behind them and let the camera make them look like a shield. But one thing you might be disappointed to know is that there was a lot of behind-the-scenes tension with the cast, with a lot of bickering and disputes, and I'm just pulling your leg. They actually love each other. In fact, Gadot was thrilled to reunite with her co-star Chris Pine and said she could not have imagined doing another Wonder Woman movie without him. She also described working with director Patty Jenkins as a homecoming, and that the Wonder Woman cast and crew are like family. That also might be down to the fact that many of the cast and crew's families, such as Gadot's children, one of which by the way was pregnant during the first movie, would spend a lot of their time on set. To think I spent my childhood at school. New recruits Kristen Wiig and Pedro Pascal have also seemingly been welcomed to the family, with Gadot and Wiig saying they became friends almost instantly, which will help the character arc between Wonder Woman and Cheetah. Cheetah's arc is said to be very emotional, but also organic and real, and will lead her striking up a partnership with the other lead antagonist, Lord. Speaking of Lord, the actor Pedro Pascal also posted a photo of himself with his fellow cast members. They recreated the iconic Breakfast Club poster, and I think that's the image I'm gonna leave you on. So that's what we know about Wonder Woman 1984. But how do you think it will play out with the DCEU going forward? And where do you think the DCEU is going? Do you think that Matt Reeves' Batman will link up in some way? Do you think that they'll have a second Wonder Woman down the line? Man, the DCEU has us thinking.